The first thing a man noticed about a knocked-out Sherman was not the smell of burned cordite or scorched rubber, but the silence. A mechanical quiet so total it became its own kind of violence. The engine no longer turning, the transmission frozen mid-ratio, the whole 42,000 pounds of it cooling in a Norman hedgerow, while German 88mm rounds had already moved on to find the next column. In the summer of 1944, the men of the 2nd Armored Division, Hell on Wheels, were pushing south from Saint-Lô through terrain that had been rearranged by the bombs of 1,500 B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators on 25 July, and in the smoking rubble of what had been orchards and farm lanes, they were learning at serious cost that the M4 Sherman medium tank was not what the Wehrmacht's Panzer crews had been told to fear. Across the line, in the dusty maintenance depots behind Panzer Lehr Division's shattered positions, German crews who had survived the carpet bombing of Operation Cobra and been pulled back for refitting still exchanged the same mordant joke that had circulated since North Africa. The Americans had built their transmission housing in one piece, a single massive iron casting stretching across the full width of the front hull, and any competent German engineer could see that when it cracked, which it did, the entire unit had to come out through the hull top, a job requiring a field crane, flat ground, and 3 to 6 hours of labor that no forward repair team could realistically provide under fire. The joke was partly true. The early M4 three-piece bolted transmission housing of 1942 had been redesigned into a single-piece casting by late 1943, a change made by Ordnance Department engineers at the Detroit Arsenal specifically to reduce the number of gasket seals that failed under high-temperature operation in North African desert conditions, and the single-piece unit was structurally stronger, but the Germans were correct that its replacement in the field was a longer process than the segmented design that German Panzer IV crews could address with 2 wrenches and a morning. What the Panzer crews had not yet accounted for, what would only become visible in the ledgers of late July and August 1944, when Cobra's momentum turned into a rout, was that the Americans had compensated for the transmission's replacement time through a logistical architecture so dense and practiced that it functionally neutralized the disadvantage. By the morning of 19 July, the 2nd Armored's 3rd Armored Division, running parallel to its left, had already seen 56 Shermans fall out of action for mechanical reasons, not enemy fire, track throws, bogey wheel failures, engine overheating, and the hedgerow constrictions. But ordnance maintenance companies operating under 7th Corps were recovering and returning to action an average of 14 tanks per 24-hour period, a recovery rate German Panzer Lehr could not match even in retreat, because Panzer Lehr had begun Cobra with 200 operational Panzers, and by 26 July had fewer than 30. The Sherman's transmission was a liability on a stationary battlefield. On a moving one, it was irrelevant because the Americans were advancing faster than their tanks were braking. The sound at Avranches in the pre-dawn of 1st August 1944 was not the sound of a battle, but of an assembly line. The low diesel throb of M4 Shermans idling in column on the Route Nationale 175, the clank of steel track on wet tarmac, the hiss of air brakes on M25 Dragon Wagon tank transporters hauling vehicles whose final drives had shed teeth on the broken stone of bocage lanes. And underneath it all, the steady metallic percussion of 3rd Ordnance Medium Maintenance Company's crews working under blackout conditions in a field 3 kilometers east of the town, pulling a damaged transmission from a 66th Armored Regiment Sherman by the glow of hooded work lamps, while P-47 Thunderbolts of the 9th Air Force flew low to keep German night reconnaissance away from the breakthrough corridor. The single-piece transmission housing in question had cracked along its lower left casting lug, a known failure point documented in Aberdeen Proving Ground reports as early as February 1944, and under normal conditions, the repair would take a trained crew approximately 4 hours using a portable A-frame hoist, a task the German assessment had correctly identified as the Sherman's mechanical Achilles heel. What the German assessment had not modeled was the 3rd Ordnance Company's pre-positioned replacement unit, already mounted on a wooden shipping pallet in the back of an M19 tank transporter, pre-filled with ordnance specification gear lubricant, pre-fitted with its output shaft seals, ready for installation without the diagnostic delays that German Panzer maintenance crews endured when sourcing parts from a supply chain that was being bombed daily by 8th Air Force B-17s targeting rail marshalling yards at Metz, Saarbrücken, and Mannheim. The Americans had solved the transmission's replacement time problem not by redesigning the transmission, that had already been done, but by industrializing the forward repair depot concept to a degree that functioned, in practice, like a production line operating within artillery range of the enemy. General George S. Patton's Third Army, formally activated at noon on 1st August, absorbed 8 armored divisions and pushed through the Avranches Gap at a rate that would cover 600 miles in 26 days, and the transmission overhaul cycle that German engineers had counted as a hard constraint on American armored advance became, in the landscape of that pursuit, a background rhythm. Tanks falling out, tanks returning, the column never stopping, the noise never ending. On the morning of 2nd August, near Pont-à-Beau, a platoon of M4A3 Shermans from the 4th Armored Division's 8th Tank Battalion crossed the Saloon River Bridge while a maintenance half-track 2 kilometers behind them completed the reinstallation of a replacement single-piece housing on a companion vehicle, the crew tightening the final torque bolts by feel in the dark, the engine turning over after 11 minutes of coolant refill, the tank rejoining the column before it had advanced 3 road miles. The German joke about the one-piece housing assumed a battlefield that would pause long enough for the joke to matter. The battlefield did not pause. The Ludendorff Railway Bridge at Remagen was still standing at 15:20 hours on 7th March 1945 when Lieutenant Karl Timmermann of the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion, 9th Armored Division, crossed on foot ahead of his men and waved the 1st Sherman forward, an M4A3 of Company A, 14th Tank Battalion, onto planking that vibrated under the weight of its 33 tons and the frost-slickened rail ties that separated its steel tracks from a 30-meter drop into the Rhine below, the river running gray and fast with snowmelt from the Eifel Hills. German demolition charges already having partially detonated, but failing to drop the span, the whole structure groaning in a way that every tanker in the column could hear through his hull. The 9th Armored had driven from the Aar River Valley to this bridge through 3 days of continuous advance, 60 kilometers in 72 hours, and in that advance, the division's ordnance companies had returned to action 23 Shermans that had suffered powertrain failures, including 7 transmission replacements completed forward of the division's rear boundary, the crews working in temperatures that kept gear oil thickened and slow, frostbitten hands tightening housing bolts, while German 20mm flak guns probed the tree lines. The single-piece transmission casting, which had attracted German engineering derision since 1943, had by this point in the war become the most commonly field-replaced major component in the ETO ordnance system. Not because it failed more than other components, but because American ordnance had built enough spare units, enough recovery vehicles, and enough trained crews that transmission replacement had been normalized into a combat rhythm rather than treated as a catastrophic event requiring evacuation to a base workshop. Across the Rhine, in the maintenance yards of Heeresgruppe B's shattered armored reserve, the surviving Panzer crews who had watched the American advance since Avranches knew the arithmetic had turned against them. A Panther's final drive, notoriously fragile on its left side, required a workshop installation and took a crew unfamiliar with the specific vehicle upward of 14 hours. Replacement final drives were arriving from the Maschinenfabrik Augsburg-Nürnberg plant in quantities that covered perhaps 40% of field demand, the rail network having been systematically destroyed by USAAF P-47s and RAF Typhoons flying cab-rank close air support and interdiction missions since September 1944. When the first Sherman crossed the Ludendorff Bridge and the bridgehead was secured before nightfall on 7th March, Generalfeldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt was relieved of command within 72 hours, blamed for the failure to destroy the crossing. But the deeper failure had been structural and logistical, accumulating since the summer of 1944. Germany could build sophisticated tanks, but could not maintain them faster than they were lost, while America had built a tank that could be fixed in a field, at night, in the cold, by men who had done it dozens of times before, and sent back into a line that never stopped moving. The laughter about the one-piece transmission housing had been, in the end, a joke about a problem that the Americans had already solved before the punchline landed.